After a presidential election, we, the taxpayers, pay for the person who has just won that election to set up offices in Washington, D.C., taxpayer-funded offices to run their transition out of, to get their transition efforts up and running, because we have a national interest. We taxpayers have an interest in there being a smooth transition from one outgoing administration to the new incoming one. I remember going to a briefing at the Obama transition offices in either late 2008 or early 2009, before President Obama was inaugurated for the first time. I remember going to that. It was, just like generic office space. I remember thinking it was kind of funny to see all these regular-looking office folks who I didn't recognize scurrying around doing office things, and mixed in among them in shirt sleeves were like, oh, look, it's David Axelrod, and hey, there's the president-elect. Hey, look, it's Joe Biden. He's about to be vice president. It was these very low-key offices, very busy, and right in downtown D.C., all taxpayer-funded. That is a standard thing now. Every president-elect gets taxpayer-funded transition offices. And after this last presidential election, it was no exception. Taxpayers paid for the Trump folks to have low-key, big, centrally located transition office space in Washington, D.C., just like every other modern president has had. What was different this year with this president-elect is that this president-elect did not use those offices. We paid for them anyway, but they didn't really use them. They used Trump Tower instead. Why not? I mean, yes, there were some Trump folks who worked out of the taxpayer-funded transition offices in D.C. during the transition in November and December and into January before the inauguration. There were some people there, but the candidate himself was not there. And none of his top people were there. None of the decisions about the transition and the new administration were really being made at those taxpayer-funded offices. And there were these insidery headlines at the time. Trump marginalizes D.C. transition staff. Those few poor suckers who were actually in D.C. thinking they were running the transition. All the real work was happening at the president's apartment, at Trump Tower in New York. We should have seen those headlines as advance warning that we should throw out the window any of our normal ideas about how a new presidential administration gets set up. But that interesting sort of novel thing about the way the Trump folks handled the transition, the abandonment of their D.C. offices, that also had a really specific logistical consequence after the election and for setting up the new administration. It meant that anybody who wanted to meet with the incoming president and his top advisors, anyone who wanted to, say, lobby for themselves getting a top job in the new administration, unlike previous presidential transitions, this time with the Trump folks, you couldn't sort of do it in a low-key way. You couldn't just slip off to some low-key generic office space in Washington, D.C. and meet with the transition folks or even the candidate himself there. To do this with the Trump folks, you had to come to Fifth Avenue in New York City, and you had to find a way in to Trump Tower. And for some people, I'm sure that was an added bonus. People who were very happy to be seen making their Trump Tower pilgrimage, who made sure to engage the reporters and everything who were camped outside the gold elevators. But not everybody wants to be seen doing those sorts of things. Some of these other meetings are lower key. And for some of those other people who might have preferred their pilgrimages to see the new president-elect, their trip out of D.C. and up to New York City and into that very public building, that ended up being an awkward thing, particularly when it hit the newspapers. Presidential election this past year, November 8th, that of course was a Tuesday. We have our elections on Tuesdays. The following week, on Thursday, the week after the election, so 9 days after the election, it was actually a serving Obama administration official who turned up unexpectedly at Trump Tower. It was Admiral Mike Rogers, the head of the National Security Agency. He was apparently spotted at Trump Tower less than a week and a half after the election. And what was very strange about that is that Mike Rogers, head of the NSA, he took personal leave from work. He took a personal day to go do this, to leave Washington, D.C., where he worked, running the NSA, to travel to New York, presumably on his own dime, to go visit the candidate, the president-elect, at Trump Tower. Now, incidentally, Mike Rogers, as an admiral in the Navy and head of the NSA, he's in the military chain of command, and he answers to the commander-in-chief, who at that point was Barack Obama. But apparently, Mike Rogers did not even tell President Obama or the Obama administration generally that he was doing this, that he was taking a personal day to leave D.C., go to New York to visit the president-elect. It was the Wall Street Journal that was first to report on NSA head Mike Rogers playing hooky that day. They were also first to report on why he might have done it. The prospect that the president-elect might be about to give Mike Rogers a big promotion. The prospect that Mike Rogers might get promoted from not just being head of the NSA and head of the Cyber Command, the prospect that he might be the new Director of National Intelligence. Within days, we got news of just how remarkable a promotion that would be for Admiral Mike Rogers. Not just because it would be a big promotion, but because top defense and intelligence officials that he had served under in the Obama administration all apparently at the time wanted him to be fired, not promoted. It was one of the stranger things about the Obama administration that we learned about during the transition. This widely reported drama about whether or not the head of the NSA was going to get fired during the transition, whether the head of the NSA was going to get canned after the election, but before the new president was sworn in. And that would be dramatic and strange enough, even if at the same time that NSA director was not apparently taking off his uniform or disregarding his uniform and taking a personal day to go secretly meet with the incoming president at his penthouse apartment in New York to talk about maybe becoming the top intelligence official in the whole government. It was very strange. It was just this very strange story about this important part of the intelligence community at an otherwise pretty dramatic time. NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers had apparently been recommended for firing by Obama's Defense Secretary Ash Carter and by the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. They reportedly thought he had done a bad job at the NSA and at Cyber Command. NBC News reported at the time that Admiral Rogers was, quote, extremely unpopular among the NSA workforce at the time. Would he be fired? Would Trump promote him, even though Obama was maybe about to fire him? Interesting question. In the end, when all was said and done, what happened is that Mike Rogers kept the NSA job into the new Trump administration. He did not get fired from running the NSA, but he also didn't get promoted to be the Director of National Intelligence either. That job went to Dan Coats, former Republican senator from the state of Indiana. And now today, on the eve of the first public appearance by the FBI director, since that FBI director was fired by President Trump, today, these two figures, the controversial admiral who snuck out from his job without permission from the Obama administration, which wanted to fire him at the time, and the former senator who got the top intelligence job, despite Admiral Rogers going to those extraordinary lengths, apparently to lobby for it secretly during the transition. These two unusual figures today opened a whole new unexpected fight in the investigation into the Russian attack on our election last year and the question of whether the Trump campaign colluded in it.
Then I'll ask both of you the same question. Why are you not answering these questions? Is there an invocation by the President of the United States of executive privilege? Is there or not?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then why are you not answering our questions?
Because I feel it is inappropriate, Senator.
What you feel isn't relevant, Admiral. What you feel isn't the answer. The answer is, why are you not answering the questions? Is it an invocation of executive privilege? If there is, then let's know about it. If there isn't, answer the questions.
I stand by the comments I've made. I'm not interested in repeating myself, sir. And I don't mean that in a contentious way.
Well, I do mean it in a contentious way. I don't understand why you're not answering our questions. You can't, when you were confirmed before the Armed Services Committee, you took an oath. Do you solemnly swear to give the committee the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You answered yes to that.
And I've also answered that those conversations were classified, and it is not appropriate in an open forum to discuss those classified conversations.
What is classified about a conversation involving whether or not you should intervene in the FBI investigation?
Sir, I stand by my previous comments.
Mr. Coates, same series of questions. What's the basis for your refusal to answer these questions today?
The basis is what I've previously explained. I do not believe it is appropriate for me to
What's the basis? I'm not satisfied with I do not believe it is appropriate or I do not feel I should answer. I want to understand a legal basis. You swore that oath to tell us the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and today you are refusing to do so. What is the legal basis for your refusal to testify to this committee?
I'm not sure I have a legal basis.
I'm not sure I have a legal basis. Today, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, and the head of the National Security Agency, Mike Rogers, said they would not tell the United States Senate, which is investigating the Trump-Russia affair, and the committee that oversees them in the Senate. The Intelligence Committee oversees the intelligence community. The intelligence agencies have to answer to that oversight committee. Nevertheless, as the head of the NSA and the Director of National Intelligence today, they said they would not tell their oversight committee about their conversations with the president and whether the president ever asked either of them if they would or could do anything to change the course of the Trump-Russia investigation or try to change public perceptions of that investigation. They would not answer. Both men have been described in multiple press reports as having been asked about or pressured on that issue by the president himself. But whatever you expected them to say about it, I don't think anybody expected what they did today. And senators of both parties today clearly were flabbergasted that both the head of the NSA and the Director of National Intelligence, not to mention the Deputy Attorney General and the acting FBI director, just flat out refused to answer any questions.
Director Coates, I would just say, and with incredible respect that I have for you, I am not asking for classified information. I am asking whether or not you have ever been asked by anyone to influence an ongoing investigation.
I understand, but I'm just not going to go down that road.
So you're not invoking executive privilege, and obviously it's not classified. This is the Oversight Committee. Why would it not be appropriate for you to share that conversation with us? Director Coates, you've said as well that it would be inappropriate to answer a simple question about whether the president asked for your assistance in blunting the Russia investigation. I don't care how you felt. I'm not asking whether you felt pressured. I'm simply asking, did that conversation occur?
And once again, Senator, I will say that I do believe it's inappropriate for me to discuss that in an open session.
You realize, and obviously this is not releasing any classified information, but you realize how simple it would simply be to say, no, that never happened. Why is it inappropriate, Director Coates? You can clear an awful lot up by simply saying that never happened.
I do not share with the general public conversations that I have with the president or many of my colleagues within the administration that I believe should not be shared.
Well, I think your unwillingness to answer a very basic question speaks volumes.
It is my belief that you are inappropriately refusing to answer these questions today.
Our default position is that when there's a Justice Department investigation, we do not discuss it publicly. That's our default rule, so nobody needs to.
Is that the rule for the President of the United States as well?
I don't know what.
Because that is what the questions are being asked about. Reports that nobody has laid the rest here, that the President of the United States has intervened directly in an ongoing FBI investigation, and we've gotten no answer from any of you.
I don't know that anybody had a clear expectation about what they would get from the acting director of the FBI, from the Deputy Attorney General, from the head of the NSA, from the Director of National Intelligence today, all of whom are somehow connected to these multiply sourced reports that the president has tried to put his thumb on the scale, in effect, when it comes to the Trump-Russia investigation, that he's tried to either shut that investigation down, get intelligence folks and law enforcement folks to make public pronouncements about those investigations to somehow try to exonerate him and change the public narrative about it. I don't know that anybody knew exactly how they would all answer as to their reported roles in what the president has done on that investigation. But I don't think anybody expected that they would all just say, nah, I don't really feel like answering your questions. So welcome to the next stage of the investigation into the Trump-Russia affair, the part where apparently the administration gets its act together to the extent that administration officials will now just stop answering questions about it from Congress, whether or not those officials can explain the basis on which they are refusing to answer. I know there's a lot going on, but this is new. This is being overshadowed today by the anticipation surrounding FBI Director James Comey's testimony tomorrow morning. But what happened today, this no, I won't answer, and now I don't have a reason why, this is a really big turning point in the overall question of whether we as citizens are going to get to the bottom of what happened here. I mean, if administration officials just start saying, no, I'm not going to answer, no, Congress has no authority to learn this stuff. No, the American people just don't get an answer to these questions, not because they have any legal reason not to say, but because I'm just not going to say. That's new for this administration. That's new for this investigation thus far. It's a big deal. It's the first sign of how the Trump administration is going to fight this now that the president has his new external legal counsel apparently coordinating this fight. But if the answer is no, you don't get answers because we don't feel like answering your questions, I'm not sure Congress knows yet how it's going to fight back against that new strategy. I don't even know if Congress is going to fight back against it. But that question is newly important. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.